Analysis to screen potential employees. Our special guest is Sheila Lowe, president of the consulting firm of Sheila Lowe and Associates. Next, we'll turn our attention to a unique way that you can get the competitive edge when it comes to selling your home. Joining us in studio will be Janet Linez, president of First Impressions, a home sales preparation service. And now, here's your host on You and Your Money, Ken Marinese. Hello, Ken.
Thank you, Deborah, and welcome, Sheila, and thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Ken. I'm happy to be here.
Sheila, you're a handwriting expert, or a graphologist. Why does handwriting analysis actually work?
Well, your handwriting actually shows who you are inside. It's like a mirror image of your true personality. And when you go to write, the things that you really are come out on the page. And so if one knows how to interpret those marks you make on the page, you can tell a lot about the person.
All right, how is it used in terms of the analysis?
There are many different applications. One of the chief things in my business is personnel profiling, getting the right person for the right job. It can be used for compatibility, matching people in relationships or in business, question documents, determining forgeries. And there's also a branch called graphotherapy where there are handwriting exercises to change personality traits.
That sounds like a multiple of different uses. Who actually uses it? Can you be a little specific?
Well, many different large corporations, small corporations, companies with one or two people in the office, but some of the companies that we've all heard of would be like Citibank. Kodak has been using it for over 50 years. Dun & Bradstreet, Lloyd's of London. There are over 5,000 companies who use it in this country.
I've heard over the years that handwriting analysis is somewhat like astrology or palm reading. Is that really the case?
No, it certainly is not. And I wouldn't have anything negative to say about astrology or palm reading, but handwriting analysis is a branch of has nothing to do with the predictive science. It can tell about your past, but it doesn't tell anything about your future, just your potentials.
Mm-hmm. Is there just one school of thought on the subject?
No, actually there are two major schools of thought. There's the French school and the German school. One of them, the French school, looks at individual strokes. It's an integrative method. Looks piece by piece by piece to build up a picture of the personality. The other one, the German school, is the holistic or the Gestalt method, and that looks at the handwriting as a whole. The picture of space, form, and movement, and how they're all integrated on the page.
Now, is handwriting analysis an exact science or an art? Which would you say?
Actually, it's part art and part science, but like any behavioral science, it cannot be 100% exact, but it actually has a much higher degree of accuracy than most psychological tests.
Now, have you validated this scientifically, or is it just more interpretation? How about the validity in terms of the scientific quality of it?
Absolutely, it has been validated many times scientifically. Most of the research has been done in Europe, particularly in Germany, Switzerland, France, but there is some research currently being done in the U.S. at the moment.
I was just looking through some of my old memorabilia from years ago, and I noticed where I'd signed my name was somewhat different than the way I sign my name today. Does handwriting in fact change over the years?
It certainly does, and if anybody who finds that their handwriting is exactly the same as it was, say, 5 years or 10 years ago, they haven't grown at all. As you grow and change, as you have various experiences in your life, your handwriting will change to reflect those.
Now, what kinds of things will one's handwriting reveal?
It tells all about your personality, your social skills, your ego, your fears and defenses, and many other things, the way you think and what controls you have on yourself. Are they conscious controls? Are you controlled by your fears? Many things about the personality are revealed.
Mm-hmm. I know you brought an example with you of a famous person's handwriting.
Yes. Let's look first at George Bush and see a few things about him. For those who listen to George Bush talking about a kinder, gentler America, if they had consulted a handwriting analyst first, they would know that this wasn't real likely, not because he doesn't care about people or that he's not a good person, but he simply doesn't have that emotional capacity. He's much more of a thinking type. He's very direct, and he's in control, and he doesn't have that kind of emotional capacity.
Maybe we should get your consulting before we go to the polls next
Absolutely.
next election. Now, you brought another example with you also.
Yes,
This is Jim Baker's,
Jim
isn't
Baker.
it?
Yes. Well, Jim Baker's handwriting doesn't look too unusual. It's kind of like the school type, the model that we were taught in school. But it has one characteristic that's different, and that is it's very close. It's very crowded. The lines all look like one word. Well, this shows somebody who is a follower, who really needs other people, and he's a crowd pleaser. Obviously, he followed the wrong crowd.
Mm-hmm. Interesting analysis. Now, let's not tell our audience whose handwriting this is. Let them guess for themselves. But if we can show the graphic.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is a person who has a lot of energy. He may be a little different than what he appears to the outside world, but he is the type of person who is going to get what he wants one way or another. He's very charming, but if he can't get what he wants by being charming, he'll do it in a very direct manner. He's not afraid to say what he thinks. Actually, that's one of his big problems. It's kind of open mouth, insert foot, somebody who acts before they think.
Now, you can tell all this from someone's handwriting?
Yes, you can.
My goodness. Now let's share with the audience whose handwriting that was.
Oh, that was Dan Quayle.
Our Vice President.
Vice President.
Uh-huh.
He makes a good compliment for George Bush because he has the emotionalism that Mr. Bush doesn't have.
I'm particularly interested in your fourth and final graphic on this handwriting and signature.
Mm-hmm.
This, as our viewers can see.
Right. This is Henry Kissinger, but you couldn't know that by looking at his signature because it's quite illegible. And an illegible signature tells us that the person doesn't want you to know them. He has a lot to hide about himself. He's a private kind of person. And this is somebody who hides behind a very stoic front.
Very interesting.
He also shows his diplomacy.
Shows his diplomacy in his handwriting.
Yes, it does.
Wow. Well, he's a fine diplomat, so I guess it all goes hand in hand. Now, some people tend to print rather than write. Can printing be analyzed as well as the regular script?
Oh, it certainly can. In fact, any language can be analyzed, Chinese or the Russian, in the same way, because we're not looking at individual letter forms necessarily, but as the whole picture. Now, most men seem to print, and what printing does is it creates a strong level of objectivity. It cuts out the emotionalism, and it allows you to see both sides of an issue.
Now, do you have to be licensed to do graphology or analyze someone's handwriting?
Unfortunately, you don't have to in this country, but there are some organizations who are working towards that aim.
But it is legal. I mean, for you to go out and solicit perhaps a company's services in terms of hiring you,
right,
to analyze, let's say, a new employee's signature. How do I know if you're a qualified graphologist?
That's a very good question. And really the key is to make sure that the graphologist that you hire has become certified by a major organization, and there are a couple of nonprofit organizations, including the American Handwriting Analysis Foundation based in San Jose, and there is a chapter here in Los Angeles, and it offers a certification program. You should also ask the analyst to give you client references and find out what their background really is.
Now, in terms of handwriting, the handwriting that seems to be most notorious or the most discussed is the doctor's handwriting,
yes,
particularly on prescriptions. Why do doctors seem to write so illegibly?
Well, the truth is that some doctors write illegibly, but many don't. And I have a rather extensive collection of doctors' handwritings, and just like anybody else, their handwriting tells the truth about them. There was an interesting study a while back that showed that many surgeons' handwritings had characteristics similar to murderers.
To murderers?
But we wouldn't want to generalize about doctors.
With all the professional liability suits, malpractice suits that float around Southern California, I guess we don't want to pursue that any further. There might be more litigation in the months ahead. So we're better off maybe forgetting that thought. Now, what about children? Children's handwriting seems to be I guess, somewhat schooled because they're practicing constantly, and they're also, in many cases, having their handwriting corrected by their teacher. Can children's handwriting be analyzed as well?
It can, but up until the age of about 12, the analyst should ask for a drawing along with the handwriting because they still are obviously being formed. And as they get into the teenage years, there are other things that would be different, that we would analyze differently than an adult's writing. But yes, you can analyze children too.
Suppose one of our viewers would like to find a qualified handwriting analyst or graphologist. How does one go about finding a qualified person?
Well, many of us advertise in the phone book. I have a booklet that I am happy to send out free to people who are interested in learning about personnel profiling and other types of analysis called Hiring the Right Way. And I could give a phone number where people can order this free. And it's area code 310-391-7404. And this gives a lot of information about handwriting analysis and how it's used in the business world.
Now, are there organizations for handwriting analysts?
Yes. Excuse me. The American Handwriting Analysis Foundation, as I mentioned, has a chapter in Los Angeles. And there are several others. This is a nonprofit group. And they have meetings once a month that are open to the public for anybody who's interested that would like to come and hear what we're doing.
And is that the best way to go to learn about becoming a handwriting expert or graphologist?
Well, they could get referrals through this organization because the colleges don't have courses for credit, unfortunately. There are only 2 or 3 in the country that do, and there's none in California. There are people like myself who teach privately, and some courses through extension programs at universities.
So you also teach graphology as well as perform your valuable service?
Yes, I do.
How long does it take to become a graphologist? Is it a year, 5 years, or longer?
A person who studies hard should be able to become competent in about 2 years.
2 years.
But of course you're continually learning.
And that's classes, home study, and a combination of the two?
Yes.
Then you take an exam to determine your proficiency? Is that how it works?
For somebody who wants to become certified, right.
So I guess you can make a living and be successful and have fun at what you do as well.
I am.
Well, I thank you for spending time with us on the show.
Thank you very much.
And